So it seems that Games Workshop's new Kill Team releases will be taken out of mainstream rules after exactly 4 years, potentially with some implication for the model kits as well. Time for a quick 40k news roundup with a look at models, releases and reveals. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today I thought I'd do a roundup of 40k news and rumours over the past week or so, a whole load of things that didn't really need their entire video all to themselves, but nonetheless I found interesting. For this one I mainly wanted to focus on the maybe slightly unexpected news that kill teams are going to have a shelf life, but there's a few other bits besides. First up though, starting with that kill team news, I think it is pretty interesting to see what's going on with that game mode, given that the releases are really quite 40k relevant. I think it has been quite a nice way for Games Workshop to release a whole load of 40k squads done properly, often digging into interesting or niche areas of the 40k backstory that haven't really properly been explored too much before. It's quite a nice excuse for a few fun new ideas as well, such as those Tempest as Aquilons, or redoing some kits that really needed it from the distant past like the Vespid. It seems like the new edition of Kill Team has largely been fairly well received so far. The co-op and solo play game mode has a few people a little bit more interested in checking out the system. A new edition in general just means that it's not the worst jumping in point when everyone's at least somewhat on a level playing field. And they've done a few other popular things as well, such as the rules being digital and completely free. And I plan to remain so from here on out. Certainly something that people would quite like for 40k, not to have a paywall between faction-specific rules. When new editions come out though, there's a big chance that Games Workshop decides to reinterpret things. The most recent version of Kill Team only really started 3 years or so ago, and made entry with a bit of a bang with the Orc Commandos versus the Death Corps of Krieg. So now they've built up really quite a lot of kill teams to support, and they have on sale. What they've announced now though is essentially a legend style system for Kill Team that, unlike in 40k or Age of Sigmar, which seems to operate on a when they feel like they're retiring the kit sort of basis, this one looks like it's actually going to have really quite a strict and set out time frame. Even if a kit is a popular one, such as the Orc Commandos for example, it's only going to be supported in the mainstream competitive play essentially for 4 years, and then only get proper rules for more casual play for 2 editions, which could be anything up to 6 years, but might be a bit less than that if, say, a kill team releases late in one of the editions, I guess. I think it takes a little bit of time to get your head around that. The word they're using for the kill teams is classified, and while they're classified, they're basically in current competitive play, and the ones they recommend for tournaments, they remain on the classified kill teams list for 4 seasons, so essentially 4 years worth of content with the different settings and kill zones that they expand to. Then they go off the classified list, and they get the rest of the 3-year edition to live out their lifespan. Not recommended for tournaments, but still getting other changes and rules updates potentially, including balance changes, so a bit of a twilight period before they mothball them and stop really supporting them from there on in. I feel like generally people have a fairly good handle on what a Legends treatment is for a model now. Basically Games Workshop deciding that they can't support it in their range or don't want to. Generally nice that they're still playable and can retain some support, and if you're playing in more casual games it needn't really impact the battles all that much. But at the same time it's rarely seen as good news, as it means that in the extreme long term basically things just get forgotten and things get progressively disassociated with the main rules until they're gone for good. So I feel like this one really is a change from the norm for, say, Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar, as it's basically giving a time frame where you know every kill team's rule sets are going to be out of date eventually, and specifically 4 years after their kit releases. It's not really quite as spelled out for things like 40k or Age of Sigmar, which could vary loads. We've had the same Warp Spider miniatures for over 30 years, for example, even if they might be due an update. Whereas other things like Age of Sigmar from starter sets a couple of editions back went on to get the Legends treatment very quickly. Alongside this, they've released some graphics as to which kill teams will be supported when, basically most useful for the ones that are only going to be classified for 1 year. So essentially these are the ones that are confirmed here at the start of the new edition of Kill Team and then going away. And it's just kind of a shame to see it include things like the Commandos and the Death Corps of Krieg, the ones that start in the animated trailer. And also for Kill Team support, there's Novitiates, Pathfinders, Legionaries, Eldar Corsairs, the Blooded Traitor Guardsmen, and the Space Marine Phobos Strike Team. All of those are going to have the Legends treatment, so still be updated and maintained for the rest of the edition, but no longer recommended for tournament play. I feel like for some of them it might be kind of interesting to see what Games Workshop do with their kits as well. Then I feel like the second graphic has the potential to mislead, or these ones are classified for years 1 and year 2, but it doesn't mean that they're all retired after that. It would only be the subset of these ones that have essentially been out for 4 years by that point, which will go after that, and they'd essentially follow the first lot into the realm of Warhammer Legends. I feel like some sort of system like this was maybe kind of inevitable due to the rate of releases of Kill Team. In their current season model, they've got a pretty guaranteed 8 kill teams per year. That's just from their core releases, and it seems to be the rate they've kept up so far. And between that and additional White Dwarf ones and other random offerings, they've built up a big roster of 33 kill teams. They're the ones that are remaining, and not including the Compendium ones or I believe Kill Team Justinian out of the Space Marine Heroes range. Basically, if they did just keep going at the same rate of pace, where they're releasing all these boxes and essentially constantly adding pretty much new factions to the game, it's going to get kind of out of hand in the not too distant future. Even if they stuck to the absolute bare minimum 8 per season, we'd be on 57 kill teams by the end of this edition's life cycle, which I fully admit just doesn't really seem all that sustainable in terms of trying to keep up with the admin of making all the armies have at least a fair balance against each other. I can see the logic for this, for how they'd have to set up this sort of system, and if anything I'd say that it's actually a good thing that they've communicated that this is the system far ahead of time, as opposed to just suddenly announcing it at the last minute like what they did with the Space Marine Horus Heresy Legends. There were probably people that bought Leviathan Dreadnoughts or Contempt Dreadnoughts for tournament play 40k not too far before they got removed from that game mode. This obviously isn't going to be a particularly popular move for people who own those kill teams, even if they will support them in rules for this edition at least, but I still think it'd be far scummier of them if they just axed them when they felt like them and didn't give people the heads up. I guess at least that saves people buying a Commandos kill team into the last quarter of this season and then suddenly have them removed from events if that's where you wanted to use them. Despite seeing the logic though, I still find it kind of weird that kill team staples like the Commandos and the Death Corps are basically leaving the main roster, perhaps particularly after the Orc Commandos were mentioned in that recent Great Gun narrative. Some stealthy orcs sneaking up on it to ambush the Tower and Guard. Not sure if that's setting up for something different, like maybe a Storm Boys kill team given the seeming focus on jump packs. It does basically seem like an odd choice to have Commandos as at least a fairly focal point in the narrative, and then basically start winding them down from the kill team setting within a year. For its impact on 40k things, it maybe begs the question as to what happens to a few of the kits that get rotated out. In the article, Games Workshop said, of course, many of these units will live on in the 40k range, though many of them doesn't exactly imply all of them. And while some, like say the Commandos or the Sisters Novitiates, seem absolutely obvious that they'll stick around as 40k units, there's maybe a few that don't feel 100% obvious. The Elucidian Starstriders kill team have rules in the Agents of the Imperium, but their counterpart antagonists, the Galapox Infected, don't have mainstream 40k rules currently. Makes me wonder if they're just going away for good, given that their kit isn't on sale anymore, or whether they might return in some way in some Death Guard or Nurgle book in the future. I do wonder what happens to these sort of minimal investment 40k upgrade sprue kill teams as well. Will they just make the Pathfinder's kit with the kill team upgrade sprue with things like the grenade launcher as just the default Pathfinder's kit from now on, even if it doesn't really have as much bearing in kill team anymore? That seems a bit more likely than just basically binning off the upgrade sprue and not having that anymore. Though I guess that'd mean that they'd have to pull some kits and rebrand them. And I guess currently take the cheaper Pathfinder's kit that's $45 off sale and just have the kill team one that's on sale as well as $60, being the only way to buy Pathfinders, I suppose. We'll be interested to hear your guys' takes on those anyway. What do you reckon they'll do with the upgrade sprue kill teams? And what do you think of the idea of Games Workshop releasing box sets where you know the game system that they're made for basically has a lifespan for that unit for somewhere between 4 to 6 years, and seemingly a 4-year or less in tournament play? Otherwise, I thought I'd just touch on a few other 40k news things. I talked about the launch of the Combat Patrol magazine from Hachette Partworks in the UK a bit over a week ago. It seems that they've been hitting shelves and people have been picking up copies of them, a bit sporadically available in supermarkets and other places. It seems that the actual subscription offering ones from Hachette themselves are out for delivery next week, though other people have been sent emails saying that there's going to be a delay on the first delivery, with the first couple of issues not arriving until October. I'm sure that's all very disappointing for some people who are hoping to get their magazines kind of soon. I'm going to guess that the demand for the first couple of magazines is going to be by far the biggest out of any that they'll see in the subscription, given that issue 1 is the essentially £3 one for a Terminator character and a Tyranid Prime, and then issue 2 isn't too much more than that for 3 Von Ryan's Leapers that Games Workshop would sell as a kit for over £25. Currently, it looks like you can still sign up for the Hachette Partworks subscription, where the first delivery is both of these for just £5 including delivery, I think. Basically one of the best deals in Warhammer if you can get it just literally on its own, though I guess it might get into weird time frames if they're not shipping out until October. You wouldn't really be able to cancel the subscription before you get the second shipment, I suppose, as you might well receive the second shipment before the first. Otherwise for the subscription, the second delivery is £40 for 5 Infernus Marines, 3 paints, a unique Infernus Sergeant and 5 Barbagorns. I still rate that as a pretty good deal, though obviously a bit scattergun with specific miniatures for different factions, and Infernus Marines aren't exactly too hard to come by second hand. Out of those issues individually, I'd say by far the most interesting are issue 5 with the unique Infernus Sergeant and issue 6 with 5 Barbagorns. They could be ones to look for on the shelves when those issues do come out and they turn up in supermarkets. It still looks like if you want to try and snipe those ones individually, it looks like they're on sale from Forbidden Planet at the moment, another third-party magazine stockist who sells them for £13.20 including delivery, so basically £3 more than you could get in a shop, but saves you trekking around to try and find them, I suppose. Could be of interest for people who want the unique sculpts, or Tyranids players looking to add Barbagorns at less than half price. I'll leave the links to those down in the video description for you in the UK. Again, those ones are affiliate links that do help support the channel a bit if you did happen to pick anything up. Otherwise, the magazine should be hitting the shelves in the USA in spring sometime, though it's not yet formally announced by Hachette Parkworks themselves. I guess it doesn't hurt to know what's coming when with the magazine rolling out in the UK though, to know when there's going to be good deals in the subscription or when to look out for them. Otherwise for Warhammer news, I noticed that there was a sort of new codex pattern rolling out in Age of Sigmar. Rather than codexes, they have battle tomes. Games Workshop showcased the covers for the Skaven and the Stormcast ones, and alongside them they basically announced that there'd be a Gamers edition of the same thing. A smaller paperback offering as opposed to the big chunky hard book that we're used to. Presumably would just contain the rules for the army and nothing else major in terms of pretty pictures, background or miniature galleries, but they do come bundled with the data cards as well, so flashcards for handy quick reference there. I guess it won't be too long before we get confirmed prices for those from Games Workshop, though I haven't seen any rumoured prices for these yet. I certainly hope that the cheaper softback version would be considerably cheaper, maybe aiming to go for a lower price point to improve access to the rules, for people who maybe aren't as invested in the faction that they want a big glossy book of it, or maybe people who are just pretty happy with the faction and how it stands, and are well versed in the lore and everything. Sigmar trends often tend to materialise in Warhammer 40k. Their timeframes and release rollouts are treated kind of similarly, and I really wouldn't be too surprised if this sort of thing manifests itself in 40k 11th edition, expected around about 2 years from now by Games Workshop's normal calendar. For Warhammer releases, it is the big Skaven launch weekend this time round. I guess that's due to the edition's launch campaign with the Skaven coming victorious over the Stormcast. They had all their units showcased first, so it kind of made sense that like the Tyranids for 40k, they'd get their book release and main launch first. They've got a whole load of miniatures that I won't showcase all of them now. I do like their big twisted centerpiece model with those curved horns. He's going to be pretty massive and $160 apparently, so perhaps a little bit less than the £100 mark. Otherwise they've got Storm Vermin, their Doomflayer sort of super destructive hamster wheel things. A nicer abomination made of all sorts of rat bits and warpstone goodness, and some Acolyte Globadiers for $58 for 5 of them. As ever, if you were looking to pick up any of the new releases, feel free to check out the discount retailers linked in the video description. They should be going live around the world not too long from when this video comes out, and if you were looking to pre-order some Skaven, these will all be significantly cheaper than Games Workshop. Otherwise, there's a Kroot Combat Patrol coming in White Dwarf, and Games Workshop gave us a shot of the miniatures that will be contained in it. This is a rule set only, so not a box set. I guess that's a fairly harmless way of White Dwarf having some rules content, as opposed to going for mainstream 40k things. There's just a bit of a pain to track down and then carry along with you alongside codexes, as they did in previous editions. This one's apparently going to be commanded by a lone spear, and he's leading 2 squads of carnivores, a Kroot rider, and 2 sets of rampagers, so quite a lot of bodies and a bit of melee muscle there as well. I've not seen rules leaked out for that one yet, though I might cover them in the future. I suspect they'll become known very shortly if they aren't out already. Finally, looking to the future for Warhammer 40k things, as we know Games Workshop are putting their feet up for a bit before the end of the year. The next full release codex is not coming out until January when we get the Guard one. Even with that though, we've got a whole load of things that are basically kind of confirmed. There will be interesting 40k news things in the gap, and it's not impossible that they could surprise us with a few more. I guess the next big 40k release will be the Blood Angels one. They're codex out individually, and a bunch of models that haven't come out yet, such as the Sanguinary Guard and their Combat Patrol, plus the new Sanguinor, Sanguinary Priest, and the Captain. I guess it'll probably be that weekend where they also drop the individual characters as well. Things like the Chaos Lord Solo, Inquisitor Kotias, the Jump Canoness, and the Benefactus. Then of course we've got the big Kill Team release, Sounds vs Vespid, in a big box with some ruined terrain. If they do it like normal edition launch things, there'll probably be one weekend where it's literally just the big box on sale, and then a second release wave maybe 1 or 2 weeks after that. And I guess that'll come with a whole bunch of rebox kill teams for the new edition, and that should be pretty 40k relevant, as that'll be when things like Mandrakes, Night Lords, and Hurricane Jaegers finally get their individual release. I'm sure there's a good few people who are waiting for them. Otherwise, we should have a 40k points update in the not too distant future. Sometime late September to late October would be my guess, and this one should be focused on points as opposed to balance changes. My guess is that it won't be anywhere near as impactful as the enormous update that we had in summer. Though to be honest, that could be kind of a good thing. Maybe just a few knocks to the top stuff and a few buffs to the things that are struggling the most. Would be nice to see the Orcs gain ground a bit. For their next reveal show, I'm guessing that the next major thing we'll see for 40k will be the reveal of a Guard launch box. Not sure when that will be coming yet at time of recording, but I feel like we're going to get a Deathcore box that's basically the equivalent of the Cadia Stands box, and still be interesting to see whether that comes out this side of Christmas or next side. They said the Codex doesn't drop till 2025, but in GW speak that's basically the individual release of the Codex, so we don't have it 100% confirmed that we're not getting Krieg before Christmas. What we should be getting though are Christmas Battle Force reveals. I said in a few videos that my first guess for this will be a Dark Angels one featuring Lionel Johnson, though usually they have a good selection of interesting enough stuff for Warhammer 40k. It will be pretty cool to see what they come out with this time round. In any case, I'll leave that there for this one. Let me know what you make of Kill Team kits basically having a planned rules life cycle where it's 4 years of mainline support, then Legends. I look forward to hearing all your thoughts on the other stuff from Combat Patrols, Skaven Releases, or Softcover Codex books. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming. I do tend to post new stuff just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description down below. Channel patrons do get a few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.